Hey guys, it's Pete from MyJewelryBench.com. In today's tutorial, we're going to cover pave setting of this pendant. I'm going to start off with something simple and flat to do a tutorial on pave setting because it's much easier to teach you. And then in the next section on pave setting, we'll be covering domed and oval and round settings. Much more complicated and a little bit harder, so I want to just get started with this. But in section 2, we'll be covering round rings. And if you're interested in jewelry modeling and you need a collection of jewelry items to start with, don't forget to check out Blender Gems on my website, www.myjewelrybench.com. Blender Gems is a collection of models that you can use to help you design jewelry. Let's get started. Okay guys, so the first thing we need to do before we do anything else is to create our frame. And our frame is going to be 30 millimeters long for our pendant, and it's going to be 5 millimeters wide and approximately 1.5 millimeters thick. So we're going to go and add in a cube. So I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to turn on my keycasts real quick. So we have those. I'm going to do Shift A. I'm going to come over to Mesh and add in a cube. Now I want our cube to be that specific size, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make the X length 30 millimeters. I'm going to make the Y length 5 millimeters. And I'm going to make the Z length, or the height of this, 1.5 millimeters. That gives me a general reference to do the start of this pendant. The next thing I want to do before I do anything else is I want to apply the rotation and scale. So I'm going to hit Control A, and I'm going to actually apply all transformations to this. I'm going to go into edit mode, and now I want to grab my edge tool up here. I'm going to grab the edge tool right there. I'm going to grab this edge here. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. Grab that edge here. I'm going to grab this edge way over here. So I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select that edge. So I've got both of those edges selected. You can tell because they're highlighted in white. I'm going to hold the Shift key down again and select the opposite two edges. So now with those selected, I can apply a bevel to this. To do that, I will press the Control B key and then move my mouse slightly away until I get to about here. And then I'm going to increase the number of loops, let's say about like that. Go back into object mode, and now you see I have a rounded off upper and lower edge of our pendant. With that done, the next thing I want to do is show you two cool tools that you can use to help yourself make pave settings. Now, when you're doing pave setting, the diamonds are literally recessed into the object that you're setting. There's typically a frame or a rim around it, and we're going to create that rim. And then I will show you how to set the diamonds from there and how to make all your cuts before we go to 3D printing. So let's take a look at our object here, and let's go back into edit mode. So press the tab key to go into edit mode. Select your face tool here. You're going to click the top face just like that, so the top face is highlighted. With that top face highlighted, we're going to come over to this tool right here, which is called Inset Faces. I'm going to press this button right here, and when I do that, you see it puts this yellow dot in the middle of our screen, in the middle location of our face. Now, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and when I grab and hold this dot and I bring it down or towards the model, you'll see it insets a ring around the entire perimeter of our pendant. And that's just what I want to do. I want to create that rim. So with that done, I've got it set to about there, and I'm basically just eyeballing this. I'm going to come over to our extrude tool, which is this button right here. I'm going to click on that button. And now you see it has this little yellow circle with a plus sign on it. I'm going to grab and hold that, and I'm going to move us down. And you can see I'm recessing the face into the pendant. And I'm going to come down to about here. I like the way that is. And now I'm going to come back to my tool here for inset. I'm going to click that one more time, and I'm going to inset these faces just a little bit more, about like so. And then one more time to the extrude tool. I'm going to click that and bring it up. So now I have this inset rim, and if I go back into edit or object mode, you can see we have this cutout around the perimeter, the upper perimeter of our pendant. The bottom is still exactly the same, but the top is now indented with a rim around it. So that's where I want to go with that point so far. So the next step is I need to create my paths for my diamonds, because in pave setting we usually work in rows, and I'm going to have 3 rows of diamonds in this pendant, so I need to create 3 paths. So here's our cube, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to label this pendant. And that is our pendant. Now I'm going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to grab my edge tool here. I'm going to just use the cursor up here. I'm going to grab my edge tool right here. I'm going to come over and I'm going to select this edge right here. Just this one edge. And I'm going to hit the P key to separate or copy that by selection and create a new object. Go back into object mode, and now I have pendant 001. We are going to convert to a curve object and make it our path. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to call this path. And I will press enter. And now I'm going to come over with that path selected, or that line selected, come over to object, and then I'm going to convert this to a curve. When I do that, you'll see it puts this little circle or this curve symbol next to the word path, which indicates that this is now a curved object. I'm going to look at this from the top down, so I'm going to press the 7 key on my keyboard, and if you don't have a keyboard with a 7 key, you can always use your tilde key, which is the one next to the 1 key on the upper part of your keyboard, and that'll bring up this little top view. And you can select anywhere from the left, the right, or in my case, the top. And now I'm going to move this line down to approximately the center of my work area, and that's denoted by my 3D cursor. With that done, and it needs to come up just a little bit more, right about there, that's good. I'm also going to right click on it, and I am going to set the origin to the center of mass. That just puts the center cursor for that object in the middle of our screen. Now I need to make that a little longer, so I'm going to hit S and then X, and I'm going to size this. Let's look at it from the top, a different view. SX, and then I can size this along until I get it to about where I want it. Let's just bring it up a little bit so we can see it. There we go. And that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to bring that back down to the surface of our pendant, just hovering over the surface just a little bit. Okay, from the top down view, I'm going to make 2 more copies of this. So I'm going to hit Shift D and then press the Y key, and I'm going to move that copy to about here so that it looks to be just off to the side. I'm going to select my first path again and hit Shift D again, then press the Y key and then move that third path down to about here. So now I have the 3 rows, and we have path, we'll call this path 2, and then we will call this one path 3. So I have path 1, 2, and 3, the center being the first path, the second path here, and then path 3 here. And those are the rows that my diamonds will be following. Okay, so now it's time to select the right size diamond. So I know that I have approximately 5 millimeters from point A to point B and width-wise. So that leaves me with about 4 millimeters to work with. Now you can play with the size of your diamonds, you can play with the size of your pendant. If you already know how to figure that out, then just like you would normally when you're actually making a ring, you would measure each row of diamonds offset by its pave setting style to get the final width. And what I've calculated here is that I'll be using 1.2 millimeter diamonds throughout this whole pendant. There will be 1 extra pendant in this row, the middle row, and the 2 side rows will have the same number each of diamonds, which is 1 less than the center. So to start with, we need to go and add in a diamond. So let's go to our Jewel Craft tool, and let's go to Add Gem, and I'm going to add in a 1.2 millimeter diamond and press the OK button. Now, it's in the middle of the screen. We really can't see it, but it's there. It's selected. You can tell it's selected because it is highlighted in yellow. With that done, press and hold the Control key, and then come over and select your first path. So with that done, I can come over to my Jewel Craft tool now and then hit the Distribute on Curve button. Once I do that, it'll put 10 diamonds along that path. And there they are. So again, we're going to look at this from the top down. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so we can see it. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select, I believe I have 17 diamonds that I'll be using in the middle row. And I will move the start location to about here, just about like so. And then I'm going to move the end location to about there. Oh, I think in this case I could probably add one more, so I'm going to come over and I'm going to add in another, let's just make this 1.3 millimeters. That's not too bad, and I'm going to add in one more diamond. That gives me a good flavor for how long I want this. Okay, so we have 18 diamonds in the middle row, and now we're going to put a second row of diamonds here, and we are at approximately 1.3 millimeters per diamond. And I'm going to come over to Add Gem. I'm going to add in another 1.3 millimeter diamond and hit the OK button. Now with that diamond selected, you can see it's in the middle. It's hidden by our pendant, but it is selected. On your PC, that should be the function key. So on a Mac, it's the command key. On the on a PC, it's a function key. So press that key down, hold it, and then come over and select Path 2, and then Distribute on Curve. And now you can see we have our second row of diamonds, and we want to move the starting location over so that it's about here. And I'm going to move the ending location to about here. That looks good so far. And we're going to cut the diamonds down by 1. So I should have a nice setting of diamonds set along the upper edge of our pendant. And what we want to do with this now is add in one more row along the bottom here. So I'm going to come over and hit Add Gem, 1.3 millimeters, hit the OK button, hold my function key down or my command key on a Mac, select Path 3, and then Distribute on Curve. And there we go. Those are our diamonds, equally distributed along our pendant. Well, we're not quite finished yet. What I need to do now is select a diamond. Using the Jewel Craft tool, I'm going to select by stone type. And I'm going to turn on my invisible mode so we can see what it looks like from a side view. And now I'm going to lower these gems to about here because that's how they should be. Your diamonds should be lower than the surface of your object or your surface of your ring, your pendant, whatever it is your pave setting. And then we use the cutter tool to put the cutters in to create our heads. So now how is that done? Let's turn off invisible mode so we can see what this looks like. And you can see the tops of our diamonds are just sticking up through the surface of our pendant. So what I need to do now is do this little trick with Jewel Craft. We're going to come over and we're going to select the cutter tool and press that button there. It will add in the cutters that we need for our diamonds. I'm going to zoom in here just so you get an idea of what it looks like. Now remember, we have to create a recessed surface or a recessed location for our diamonds in pave setting. So what we're going to come over here is to the girdle, and we're going to look at the top section of the girdle, and we're going to adjust that. And when I do that, you'll see it brings up the upper part of the girdle all the way to the top of our surface area. So each of our cutter tools now is the same width as our diamond. However, the cylinder itself for the recessed hole will be made like a straight drill. So with that done, I'm going to come over and click off my tool here. I'm going to look at this from the side. I'm going to come over and select all of my cutters. You do that by holding the left mouse button down when you're selecting. And you can see all my cutters are selected. I will hold the Shift key down and select our pendant. And then I'm going to use the Boolean tool and I'm going to use the difference option. And now we've recessed or created the recesses for each of our diamonds. We're not quite done yet. I want to show you a neat, nifty little tool that will help you to almost get this semi-finished. When it comes out of casting, you'll actually be able to move quite quickly to set each of your stones. Now, this is a little trick that I figured out a little while ago while I was doing this. I'm going to come over to our model. I'm going to click off our model and hit Shift A to add in a new object. I'm going to select the meshes, come over to our cube and add in a cube. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. I'm going to rotate that along the x-axis so it rotates this way. So hit RX45. Press enter. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I want the point of our cube going straight into our model. Now I'm going to use this as a cutter to cut a row all the way down the length of our pendant for each row. To do that, first thing I want to do is hit Control A and apply the rotation and scale to our cube. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to hit SY and shrink our cube down on the y-axis to a point, something about like that. Now I'm going to take this, and from the front view I'm actually going to bring this down into our model about here. And that looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to take this and I'm also going to stretch it or expand it along the x-axis. So I'm going to hit S, X, and then I'm going to drag my mouse and make this the length of our pendant inset. Not the entire pendant, just the inset. So if I zoom in here, we should be able to see that the point is protruding from this cut line. It cuts into that, but it does not cut into the outer perimeter cut line. The same should be on this side, and it is. Okay, that's good. That's just how I want it. Now I'm going to select my cube. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate it. I'm going to press Y to move it along the y-axis, and I'll move it to the middle of our diamonds. So if I look straight down and I turn on invisible mode, we can see it's just about in the middle of our diamonds. I'm just going to move that right to the middle. And now you can see it does protrude into our outer surface. So I'm going to make this one just a little bit shorter. So with that selected, I'll hit SX and just bring it into about here. And if we zoom into our model, I'll turn off invisible. We'll go back to normal view. We should see that it protrudes out of our inner area, but not to the outer rim of our pendant. Should be the same on the other side, and that's perfect. With that done, I'm going to select that particular cube that we duplicated. I'm going to look down from the top. Again, I'm going to enter invisible mode. I'm going to hit Shift D, then the Y key, and then I'm going to move that down till it's in the middle of our third row of diamonds. And now that that's done, I can come back to my model mode. Just double check that it's not protruding into anything we don't want to cut through. I can hit that, hold the Shift key down, and select each of the other two cubes. With those three cubes selected, continue holding the Shift key down or press it again and select the pendant, and then go to the difference tool on the Boolean function. And now you see what I've done is I've created the cuts for our diamonds so that it will be easier for me to put prongs in when I'm actually doing this. Now I'm still, in this particular model, I'm still going to have to do some cut work with a burr to cut into some of these lines, but I've really eliminated about half my work, if not more. By doing this and making this pendant the way I did, I think it took about, what, 10 or 15 minutes? And that would have taken me roughly, with burrs and cutters and gravers, it probably would have taken me the better part of about 5 hours to get to this point. So I want you to consider that this does save quite a bit of time. Now I can save this out and go to 3D printing. But before I do that, we're going to add in a bail to this. This is going to be a quick bail, and it's just a bail that you can hang it from a standard chain. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to hit the curve tool. I'm going to hit Add Curve, and I'm going to come down to Circle. With that selected, I'm going to hit RX90 and rotate that along the x-axis. And then I'm going to drag this all the way out to the end or top of our pendant. Okay, so with this shown from the side view, I'm going to hit S and then X, and I'm going to along this a little bit. I'm going to bring this out to about here. Now this is a curve object, so I can go to my geometry tools for curve objects. I can hit extrude and depth. I'll start with depth and we'll give this some dimension. And then I'll just give this an extrusion to make this a little bit wider. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And I'm just going to move it out just a little bit more so it doesn't cut through the surface of our pendant. That looks good. With that selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down, select our pendant, and then go to the Union tool, and now I've joined those two together. Now the cool thing is, what does this particular pendant look like when it's going to be done? Let's say this is going to be a white gold pendant with these diamonds. Let's go take a look at, do a quick render of this. Okay guys, so in white gold, that's pretty much what it looks like. I'm pretty happy with that look. And again, we're going to go look at the 3D print and see how well that came out. So here's the results of the rendering. This is the final render of this pendant. I show you basically in this tutorial how to get to this point. There will be some finish work done to this. Obviously post casting you'll have to do a little bit more. However, you can see the detail in the pendant in the 3D print of this pendant, and it did come out really well, which will make setting the stones and doing the finish work a whole lot easier. I figure this would save about 4 to 6 hours worth of work, at least for me, because I'm not great at pave setting. But for those of you who want to get these results and get them damn near perfect, this is a good way to do it. If you like this video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing, as part 2 will be coming up, pave setting in a diamond ring, which we'll be covering on arcs and curves, which is a lot more complicated, and that video will undoubtedly be a little bit longer. Stay in touch, guys, and have a great day.